Automobile boom. Sarah is studying for the Toefl test and is reading a paragraph about the automobile boom. By the way, Sarah, every step you take towards your goals is progress, no matter how small. Sarah, it's okay to make mistakes, they are opportunities to learn and grow. Sarah, let's start. 1. During the early 1900s, companies rushed to implement large volume output technology, including a rapid changeover to a new manufacturing process designed to produce massive quantities of identical high-quality goods at a low cost per unit. As such, the stages of assembly were standardized, utilizing precision-made, interchangeable parts and factories carefully reorganized to allow the flow of raw materials through a set of sequential steps. These innovations caused great advancement in the American automobile industry in particular, most notably by carmaker Henry Ford. His business strategies with underlying mass production philosophy prompted an automobile boom, elevating the entire country into an economic upswing. Originally, Ford's company was staffed with professional engineers who were trained in every aspect of building internal combustion engines and designing the framework for the vehicles, and thus, the office was based on stationary production points wherein assistants would carry necessary parts for each car. Ford's implementation of an assembly line, however, broke the manufacturing up into a lot of small steps. Employees stood side by side, concentrating on their individual task, as the materials rolled along a conveyor belt. The amount of training needed to carry out only one job, as opposed to many, was minimal, and the company was able to replace highly skilled employees with men who were unskilled or semi-skilled and therefore inexpensive to employ. In addition to saving him money on payroll, the transition also reduced the manufacturing time by assigning easily perfected repetitive chores. Together, these two changes resulted in a startling increase in productivity without compromising quality. Sarah, is it difficult for you? Then an easy explanation for you. A long time ago, companies wanted to make lots of things very quickly and cheaply. They made a new way of making things that used machines and made everything the same. A car maker named Henry Ford used this way to make cars really fast and cheap. He made a big change in the way people made things by having workers do one small task at a time, and he trained them to do it really well. This made it so the cars were made faster and didn't cost as much, so more people could afford them. Sarah, check the vocabulary below. Large volume output technology, a method of manufacturing that produces a large quantity of products in a short amount of time. Rapid changeover, the ability to switch from producing one product to another quickly. Identical, being exactly the same in every way. Low cost per unit, the amount of money it costs to produce 1 unit of a product. Example, a company that can produce a product for $1 per unit is said to have a low cost per unit. Stages of assembly, the steps involved in putting together a product. Example, the stages of assembly for a car might include installing the engine, attaching the wheels, and painting the body. Standardized, made to be the same in every way. Precision made, made with a high degree of accuracy and attention to detail. Example, a watch that is made with precision-made parts. Interchangeable parts, parts that can be used in place of one another. Sequential steps, steps that must be followed in a particular order. Example, the sequential steps for assembling a bookcase might include attaching the sides, then the shelves, and finally the back. Advancement, progress or improvement. Example, the advancement of technology in the automobile industry allowed for more efficient and cost-effective production. Underlying, existing beneath or not apparent on the surface. Example, the underlying cause of the problem was not immediately obvious. Mass production philosophy, a philosophy or approach to manufacturing that emphasizes producing a large quantity of goods in a short amount of time. Example, Henry Ford's mass production philosophy helped revolutionize the automobile industry. Automobile boom, a period of rapid growth and expansion in the automobile industry. Example, the 1920s saw an automobile boom in the United States, with millions of cars being sold each year. Economic upswing, a period of economic growth and prosperity. Example, the economic upswing of the 1950s was fueled in part by increased consumer spending. Internal combustion engines, engines that burn fuel to produce power. Example, most cars today use internal combustion engines to power the vehicle. Designing the framework, creating the basic structure or foundation of a product. Example, the process of designing the framework for a building involves determining its size, shape, and layout. Stationary production points, fixed locations where products are assembled or produced. Example, in a factory, stationary production points might include a painting station or an assembly line. Implementation, the process of putting a plan or idea into action. Example, the implementation of a new production process can take months or even years. Rolled along, moved forward, typically on a conveyor belt or assembly line. Example, the car parts rolled along the assembly line, with each worker completing a different task. Assigning, giving a task or responsibility to someone. Example, the factory manager was responsible for assigning tasks to workers on the assembly line. Conveyor belt, a continuous moving belt used to transport materials or products. Example, in a factory, a conveyor belt might be used to move parts from one area to another. Payroll, payroll is the total amount of money that a company pays to its employees in exchange for their work during a specific period. Example, the company's payroll for the month of January was $100,000, which included salaries, wages, and benefits for all of its employees. In particular, to emphasize a specific person or thing, or to add more information about something that has been mentioned previously. Example, I enjoy many sports, but I like basketball in particular because it requires good teamwork and quick thinking. Wherein, in which, in or into which. Example, the company's new policy, wherein employees can work remotely, has greatly increased productivity. Opposed to, in contrast to or as the opposite of. Example, she preferred to work alone, opposed to working in a team. Without compromising quality. In the phrase, without compromising quality, compromising means to lower or weaken the quality of something. So, without compromising quality means without lowering or weakening the quality. It's saying that something can be done without sacrificing or reducing the quality of the end result. Example, the company implemented a new cost-saving measure, without compromising quality, that resulted in a significant increase in profits. 2. On the whole, the new manufacturing methods dramatically modified the organization of the workplace, altering the concept of the American factory environment. Whereas the previous industrial model ensured that engineers had interesting, whole projects to work on, as well as continued education, an assembly line demanded a minute division of labor, each person performing a single monotonous task. Laborers quickly became bored of their jobs and lost interest, threatening to bring down the value of their end products. Ford, realizing that his new factory necessitated a strict monitoring of employees to assure that expected outputs were maintained, established a hierarchical system of supervisors to maintain productivity at peak output levels, and encouraged the many professionals who had initially lost their engineering jobs to join the higher ranks of the now rigid and controlled company structure. The triumph of the Ford plant had a revolutionary effect on the collective industry as well as inspiring newer peripheral industries to develop in order to accommodate increased automobile production. After all, assembly lines required raw materials for input, so steel mills, glass factories, and metal foundries sprang up in clusters close to huge manufacturing plants. At the same time, machine tool and die makers who provided all the precision parts and mechanical devices for the factory infrastructure flourished as technology continued to improve, the offshoots of which reared a range of new and exciting careers, particularly of interest to the large groups of young men returning from military duty around this time, and kept unemployment rates down while boosting overall spending. In the end, this booming economy together with better automation allowed Ford to drop his selling price from about $850 in 1908 to less than $300 in 1925, at which time sales figures skyrocketed as average customers could now afford to purchase a vehicle, feeding back into the overall health of companies that were involved with car making. Sarah, is the above paragraph difficult for you? Then an easy explanation for you. New ways of making things changed how factories worked. Workers did the same task over and over on an assembly line, and it was not as interesting as before. Ford made sure people did their job well by having bosses watch them closely. As the factories grew, new places like steel mills and metal foundries appeared nearby to supply materials. People who made special parts and machines for the factories also had a lot of work. More people could buy cars because they were cheaper to make, and that helped the economy grow. Sarah, please check the words below and remember. Organization of the workplace, the way work is arranged in a company or factory to increase efficiency and productivity. Example, the manager implemented a new organization of the workplace to improve the production process. Monotonous task, a repetitive and dull task that requires little or no mental effort. Example, the assembly line workers had to perform the same monotonous task for hours. Necessitated, to make something necessary or essential. Example, the growth of the company necessitated the expansion of the production facilities. Hierarchical system, a system of organizing people in a company or organization according to their rank or position. Example, the company's hierarchical system allowed for clear communication and efficient decision-making. Triumph, a great victory or success. Example, the triumph of the team in the championship game was celebrated by the entire city. The collective industry, all the companies and organizations that make up a particular industry. Example, the collective industry of the automobile manufacturing sector is a major contributor to the country's economy. Engineering jobs, jobs related to designing, building, and maintaining various structures, machines, and systems. Example, the company is hiring new engineers to work on the design of their new product. Peripheral industries, industries that support or supply the main industry. Example, the peripheral industries such as steel mills and glass factories are essential for the production of automobiles. Metal foundries, factories where metal is melted and cast into different shapes. Example, the metal foundry produced parts for the automobile industry. Sprang up in clusters, appeared or developed in groups or clusters. Example, new businesses and industries sprang up in clusters around the new factory. Clusters, groups or collections of things that are close together. Example, the city has clusters of restaurants, shops, and businesses. Mechanical devices, devices that use mechanical energy to perform tasks. Example, the factory had a variety of mechanical devices to assist in the production process. Factory infrastructure, the physical structures and facilities of a factory, such as buildings, machines, and equipment. Example, the company invested in upgrading the factory infrastructure to improve efficiency. Machine tool and die makers, skilled workers who create precision parts and machines for manufacturing. Example, the company hired experienced machine tool and die makers to improve the production process. The offshoots, the unintended results or consequences of a particular action or event. Example, the offshoots of the company's expansion included the creation of new jobs and industries. Automation, the use of machines and technology to perform tasks automatically, without human intervention. Example, the company invested in automation to increase efficiency and reduce costs. Overall spending, the total amount of money spent by individuals, companies, or a country on goods and services. Example, the government's plan to increase overall spending on infrastructure projects was met with approval from the public. On the whole means considering all aspects or overall. Example, on the whole, I think it's a good idea to invest in that company. Whereas, is used to indicate a contrast between two things or ideas. Example, I like apples, whereas my sister prefers oranges. Accommodate means to provide space or make adjustments to fit in something or someone. Example, the hotel was able to accommodate all of our needs during our stay. Feeding back into means to have an effect on or impact something in a circular manner. Example, the company's success was feeding back into the community by creating more jobs. 5. The mounting popularity of personal transportation ultimately had repercussions on the cities and countryside as they rapidly changed to make room for the astounding increase in cars. Dirt roads were replaced with paved streets and freeways while urban developers hurried to design gutters, curbs, traffic signs, and other infrastructure that was previously unnecessary. Leisure time now circled around car ownership, bringing forth entertainment venues such as the drive-in theater or touring on newly constructed highways with accompanying gas stations, rest stops, billboards, and even motels to lodge weary travelers along the way. The entire cultural landscape was altered to focus on driving and the needs of the automobile consumer, the impact of which has had major reverberations on the economic survival of the country. Sarah, please refer to the easy explanation for you about the above paragraph. Cars became very popular and it changed how cities and countryside looked because they had to build new roads and places to park cars. People started spending more time and money on cars and going on road trips, which created new types of entertainment like drive-in theaters. The changes caused by cars had a big effect on the economy of the country. Sarah, please check the vocabulary below. Popularize, to make something widely liked or accepted by many people. Example, the advent of smartphones has popularized the use of social media among people of all ages. Personal transportation, any means of transportation that is used by an individual, rather than shared or public transportation. Example, cars, bicycles, and motorcycles are all examples of personal transportation. Astounding, causing astonishment or amazement, stunning or incredible. Example, the magician's tricks were so astounding that the audience was left speechless. Repercussions, consequences or effects that result from an action or decision. Example, the new policy had severe repercussions on the company's profits. Freeways, highways designed for high-speed traffic, typically with multiple lanes and no intersections or stoplights. Example, the interstate freeway system in the United States spans across the entire country. Urban developers, professionals who plan and design the built environment of cities, including buildings, infrastructure, and public spaces. Example, the urban developer worked closely with the local government to create a new master plan for the city's downtown area. Infrastructure, the basic physical and organizational structures and facilities needed for the operation of a society or enterprise. Example, the country's infrastructure includes roads, bridges, power grids, and communication networks. Leisure time, time that is free from work or other obligations, in which one can engage in enjoyable activities or hobbies. Example, during his leisure time, he likes to play video games or read books. Rest stops, designated areas along a highway or freeway where drivers can stop to rest, use the restroom, or get food or drinks. Example, the rest stop had a large parking lot, a convenience store, and several fast food restaurants. Billboards, large signs used for advertising or promoting products or services, typically located along highways or in highly visible areas. Example, the billboard advertised a new movie that was coming out in theaters soon. Lodge, to provide temporary accommodation or shelter, typically in a hotel or motel. Example, we decided to lodge at a nearby motel for the night instead of driving home in the dark. Weary travelers, travelers who are tired or exhausted from their journey. Example, the weary travelers were relieved to finally reach their destination after a long flight. Cultural landscape, the visible human imprint on the natural environment, including buildings, structures, and other cultural elements. Example, the cultural landscape of the city is a mix of historic buildings, modern skyscrapers, and public spaces. Automobile consumer, an individual or group of individuals who purchase and use automobiles for personal transportation. Example, the automobile consumer market is highly competitive, with many different brands and models to choose from. Economic survival, the ability of an economy or business to sustain itself over time, including through periods of recession or financial instability. Example, the company's economic survival was threatened by the recent downturn in the global economy. Reverberations, indirect or unintended consequences or effects of an action or decision, often with far-reaching implications. Example, the reverberations of the new trade policies are still being felt throughout the industry. Circle around, means to revolve or be centered around a particular thing or idea. Example, our family gatherings always seem to circle around food. With accompanying means something that comes with or is associated with another thing. Example, the new smartphone came with accompanying accessories like a charger and earphones. Okay, all done for today. Sarah, remember to be kind to yourself and practice self-compassion. Sarah, don't be sad. Sarah, remember that you are important, capable, and deserving of happiness and success.